There is nothing wrong with your internet. Do not attempt to adjust your settings. We are controlling the podcast. We control the squealing and the screams. We can make your heart flutter, your eyes blur from tears, or sharpen your mind to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit back. We are in control of what you hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your settings. You are about to experience the awe and mystery known as the female mind. You are now entering the Fangirl Zone.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fangirl Zone. I'm Sean, Fangirl S, and today we're talking Handmaid's Tale. So, as you know, my awesome co-host who's been with me on this journey, Miss Jennifer.
Hi everybody!
We are on number 8. Oh my gosh.
Jezebels!
It's so crazy because this was a whole different thing. I was not expecting this at all.
This was the episode where I was like, what?
Alright, so let me give you a little synopsis. We have the commander surprising Offred with a secret adventure in Gilead, and Nick's troubled past leads to his recruitment by the sons of Jacob. Yeah, so we finally get Nick's backstory here.
Yes, which is not in the book, by the way.
Oh, really?
Nope,
Yeah.
but Jezebels is in the book.
Oh, okay. So it opens up, though, with, Offred thinking about Luke and lamenting. But as she is in Nick's, I wouldn't say house, but room.
Yeah, his apartment above the garage.
Yeah. They had obviously just had sex, or recently she's still naked. She's kind of wrapped in a blanket, and she's just thinking, I should have done more. I should have memorized his face. He's alive, but he's fading.
Yeah.
Now I want to memorize everything about Nick.
Yeah, and so, okay, I wonder, this is the episode that made me think, okay, we know Luke's alive. Luke knows that June's alive. June has told him, focus on Hannah. Can there ever be a Luke-June reunion?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's so complicated.
Well, living in this kind of servitude that she's been in and the indoctrination that she's had to go through.
And she and Nick are kind of like survival victims clinging together.
Yes.
And
that I don't know if they'd ever be able to go back to any kind of normal.
Like, how do you go back to your husband after being raped by, I don't know, at this point, the first time she had sex with Nick wasn't exactly consensual. It's because Serena made her do it. And then we know the commander she's with now, and then she had another posting before. So this, at least 3 different men who have raped her, not times, but men. But now, she is having consensual sex with Nick. And she says, I wish I were in a different story that showed me in a better light.
Right.
So she doesn't feel exactly good about herself, but at the same time, she's like, sorry, not sorry. I'm doing this to survive.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's funny. As I was watching and kind of looking at the Twitter feed for Maids, a lot of people kind of said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could they ever have a normal life together? Would she want to go back? Or is she like, okay, if he saves Hannah, then I will deal with whatever comes to me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really questionable.
Yeah, especially if she is to get pregnant, then what happens?
Right, because even though Luke's going to be supportive, it's kind of one of those things knowing that, okay, this isn't your child. Would you be able to be okay raising the child? If she's to get pregnant.
It is June's biological child. It just would not be his biological child. So.
And then once he actually gets all the gory details of what happened.
Yeah, and how this child came into being, because for all we know, Luke is in the dark as to what's exactly happening to them. And we see June thinking or hear her thinking, I don't want to be alone, and basically screw it feels good.
And then plus, like you were just saying, Luke doesn't know. I mean, look at how it was in the beginning. Moira and June both thought it's going to be artificial insemination.
Yeah, and
Maybe that's what Luke's thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And he has no idea that they're actually going through this sick ceremony, and I'm doing air quotes here. it just, and we, okay, so in Nick's flashback, we learned that back in the days before Gilead, it was hard to be employed, and it was hard particularly for him to stay employed. And society only cares about profit and pleasure. And that, the one guy that he meets that recruits him into the sons of Jacob, which they have in 30 states, we find out.
Yes.
He's, that God has turned his back on us because we care about profit and pleasure.
And it's kind of funny too, because that, I don't even remember getting that man's name. He's one of the commanders.
Yeah, he's one of the commanders. But yeah, he
takes Nick to get coffee after there was a whole kind of back and forth with another unemployed person at the Helping Hand Center.
Yep.
And, even, Nick's telling about, the factory shut down, his dad lost his job, his brother was kind of scamming for a while, and he needs something in Ann Arbor, so we find out he's from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'll do anything. And, the commander, who, because I don't know his name, that's all I'm going to call him. He's like, oh yeah, because, idle hands, like they say in the good book. And Nick's like, they don't even have that. That's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. So he knows the Bible.
Yeah. And so we also, in Nick's flashbacks, we get where they're kind of talking about the one guy who's recruiting Nick in basically says that he believes all remaining fertile women need to be impregnated by superior men. We just need to round them all up and knock them up, basically.
Wait, no, he wasn't the one that had said superior men, though. I thought that was the other guy.
Oh, the other guy, yeah.
Yes, because there is another commander who they do name, and I don't have that name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't get either of their names, but they're, these basic, white guys.
Right, because Nick's driving the limo. Waterford's in there, the guy who recruited him, and then the third guy who, oh my gosh, I feel horrible not knowing this name. But the third guy is the one who's kind of being a jackass about it. They're like, we need to have all the women, which at this point, oh God, and I loathe to say this, but it makes some sense. Because if the population's failing, you're going to have to do something. Which I get that. I'm not saying I don't. But these guys are doing it in, a way, of course, that is very unsavory.
Yes, and the most chauvinistic, taking away power from women away. Just like in Serena Joy's flashback episode where it could have gone a different direction where, fertility is a commodity and these women could actually hold positions of power and choose to be surrogates.
Right.
But that's not how it went. And basically they're in the back of this limo and they're talking about, well, they'll need the support of the wives. And they decide to make, there's scriptural precedents for this.
Right. Oh, it's Commander Guthrie. Sorry, I looked that up finally.
Oh, okay. And,
how he's just like, oh, we'll just do it. And he's the one who's so stuck with the superior men.
Yes, and Jacob, we'll use the passage where, Jacob's wife gives him the handmaid, let me have children or else I die. And we'll make it a ceremony. We'll make everything nice and neat. Women like ceremonies, right? And, so they feel like they're involved and they're a part of this. And that is how they decided to get the wives buy-in. And apparently it worked.
But
I'm a little disturbed.
Interesting. Because Waterford's like, we can't call it an act, not from a PR standpoint.
No, yeah. And it seems like Waterford is more of the guy who was the brander, the marketer, the communicator, the one who was convincing everybody this was a good idea kind of guy.
Right, and that was it really disturbed me, because like I said, Guthrie was being just kind of an ass about it.
Mm-hmm.
With, oh yeah, I mean, who cares what the wives think? We have to do it. And the rest of them were like, listen. Oh, and I looked it up. The one guy's name is Price, by the way. The one that recruited him. Because he's even like, you're talking about concubines. And he's like, who cares what we call them? And basically it's like, all right, listen. This is when I'm looking at it going, okay, you have the true believers, which at this point I'm seeing Price as a true believer.
Yep.
And Waterford, who's kind of on the fence. And Guthrie's who's like, who cares? We're in power. We can do what we want.
Yeah. We can just do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, and it was just really disturbing to see that. And it's funny because as we watched that, and I happened to just watch that with my husband, he's like, that's everywhere. You have these streams right there within society.
Mm-hmm. That exists in today's society. Men who think like that. And it's scary.
Right. And you just want to slap them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they all seem to be older guys. Waterford seemed to be the youngest among them.
Yes, yeah. And that's maybe because he's got darker hair, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, and he's got Serena Joy, who kind of wrote the book on, domestic feminism and, how to, squash the wives into submission, basically. He enjoys this position of power because of that, and it almost seems like he's the mouthpiece to the masses, whereas the other commanders are doing things silently behind. They're the men behind the curtain. Okay, is kind of the feeling that I get.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, when you see this and they drop them off, or Nick drops them off, Waterford's like, what do you think, Nick? Well, Nick's like, oh yeah, it's probably better not to have attachments. Which, of course, then when you come back to, like, present day, and you have, Nick and June.
Very attached.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. And then later in the episode, he kind of acts distant. So it's like, really, like, I get that Nick is in this position and realizes he's in this position.
He kind of exploits his position, too, because at this point, he gains Waterford's trust. And so he's not just driving for anybody after this. He has the trust of Waterford and becomes his driver.
That's true. And then
so he exploited this situation.
We find out he becomes an undercover eye.
Oops. Yes.
And Price is telling him, okay, well, this is different because we have the eyes who are uniformed and out there and everybody knows. Mm-hmm. But where we really get the information is from the undercover plainclothes operatives.
Yeah, and we think you could be our guy.
And he's like, but you understand you'd be informing on Waterford. Because we see this as they're taking, he's at, like, I'm assuming, like, eye headquarters or whatever. Because you have two eyes bringing Guthrie in. And he's telling him something along the lines of he was having sex with his handmaid and doing something else without it being ceremony.
Right.
And so basically Guthrie was like, I can do what I want. And then he looked horrified because Guthrie's like, shit, they're taking this seriously. I'm screwed.
Uh-huh. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, so this is where we see Nick. And it's like, is Nick a true believer?
I don't think that he is. And I think that he used this uprising to his benefit, but then felt a little bad about it. And I think Nick is such a puzzle, though, because is he truly affected by things, and is he willing to help the fall of Gilead, or is he fine with things now because he's employed, he's in a position of power? We just don't really know about Nick.
Right. Like, all the way through, I've been saying, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we don't know if we can trust him or not. But, of course, in this world, can you trust anyone, considering that they're saying, well, you would even be reporting on Waterford?
And he's like,
so even if you're in a position of power, you've got to worry about your driver informing on you doing inappropriate things.
Which I'm wondering how much the other commanders know about that.
Exactly.
Like, are you really that stupid? You're like, I'm going to do what I want because I'm in power, and nobody's going to turn you in?
Yeah. And then we kind of see, with this episode, Jezebels, where they have this kind of speakeasy club they've created in an old hotel. And they're like, oh, well, we have diplomats from other countries who are accustomed to this kind of thing that we have to entertain. And, when you're in power, you kind of bend the rules. Everybody kind of does it, and it's okay.
And that was just another thing, like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
How are you basically condemning these women, saying, how dare you ever do this, and yet you are doing this yourself?
Yeah, and then we find out that the women that are in these clubs were the ones who could not assimilate because they were too educated or, they try to run away what have you.
I have a question for you right here and we will back up and explain the skeezy part in a few moments. But when he's there, he's like, yes, they were working girls. But then he points to a woman, Waterford, and he goes, she was a psychology professor. And I'm like, what kind of, and again, in quotes, working girls? I'm thinking working girls are prostitutes, but.
Exactly, but then he makes that comment and he's like, oh, they just had a job.
That's what I was wondering. Because it was like, we have lawyers, we had the professor, there was something else.
Because some of us like to have intelligent conversation, some of us.
If you like that sort of thing.
Exactly, and I'm like, wow.
And I think I had that what the fuck face right there, because I'm like, are you kidding me? That's why when he said working girls, I wasn't 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of them probably were prostitutes, but I think a lot of them were working professionals who were too educated to do much else. It would have been risky for them to make them Marthas or aunts because they could have been forming the resistance. And if they were fertile, which I don't think any of the women in Jezebels are. I mean, maybe there are some.
Oh, no, they are. And we'll explain that in a few.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. But, I mean, I think because these women, they were afraid that they would create uprisings in whatever caste, and I'm going to use that put in.
That they were put in, yeah.
Yeah, whether it be handmaid as an aunt or as a Martha, and they're definitely not suitable to be wives. They're too educated or, they're never going to, let you, take away their books and things.
Right.
So, these are kind of the Beauty and the Beast Belle women. And the ones that, just could not assimilate into the new society.
So let's go back because I have to tell you how I was entirely skeezed out here.
I would have ended up at Jezebels.
No, they'd have sent my ass right to the colonies. Like I still wouldn't have been there.
That's true. I mean, I don't think I would have put up with Jezebels either. I'd be in the colonies with you. Okay.
So after the opening, Offred goes back to the room and it's like, is this supposed to be early morning, late night? Because I couldn't quite tell. And then I'm like,
I couldn't really tell. But the commander meets her in her room, and he's just kind of there. And he says, I thought we could do something different tonight. And she's kind of snarky. She's like, Monopoly?
But like, where does he think she's coming from? If it's supposed to be night, was she out like, I'm walking around, fuck this, I
don't know where he thinks that she was. I don't think he thinks much of anything. I don't think he's been waiting for her that long. I think maybe he thinks she was attending to, household duties. Not that she has that many. I don't think he even thinks about her not being there when he goes to her.
I was wondering. But then he's like, but we have to do something about your legs first. And it's like, what? And this is just, and when I first watched this is when I was blowing up poor Jennifer's phone.
Oh, so this is when he got the name Commander Creepy for me.
He's shaving her legs. And this is when we find out, too, only once a month do the Marthas bring a razor and they wait outside. So
Rita waits outside, yeah.
Yes, because they're not to be trusted with a razor for any length of time.
Right.
Well, he decides he's shaving her leg, and I'm like, watching this going, okay, now this might be an intimate moment if you are with your partner.
Yeah, but this...
It was just, I was like, ugh, okay, really, stop, because I was creeping out. And then he's like, doesn't that feel nice? And I'm like, ugh.
Doesn't that feel nice?
Yeah, I was very much doing that Sully, like, fainting as Booth possibly being crushed thing because
I think
the faces I was making.
Yeah, it's just like, And so he's like, oh, and you'll also need this. And he hands her makeup and a dress and heels.
But
and I had to guess the sizes.
Right.
And what's that?
But when he hands the makeup, it's like, do you remember how to do this? Okay, it's not like it's been, like, she doesn't have a lobotomy and it hasn't been like 20,000 years.
It's only been like 3 years. Right. So yes, of course, I still know how to slap some lipstick on. Okay. I'm not retarded.
I was just like, oh, God, stop. And he's holding the mirror as she's putting on. He's like, beautiful. I'm like, I'm creeping out here. Like,
yeah, she's just like, I'm not stupid. I can do this. You probably have to cut out where I said retarded. I'm sorry.
But yeah, and then with the dress, I had to guess. And the shoes, it's like, okay, now the shoes I can see having to guess the size because ladies' shoes are not that easy to figure out. I'll tell you that.
No, and they're not always appropriately sized. Like, you can be a 9 in one shoe and a 10 in another and an 8.5 in another, and it's just, yes, women's sizes are all.
Yeah, our stuff doesn't make sense, basically.
No, it doesn't.
But it comes out, and I'm like, all right, well, the dress fits. But it didn't even seem like it was something that she would wear in the past.
No.
Because even she seemed like, oh, God, this is short, you know?
Yeah, it's like really short, and it's sheer, like, most of the bottom sheer, so it's just enough to cover the hooch, and then it's sheer with kind of beading on it.
She's not wearing any undergarments.
No, I don't think she is.
Think she could.
Her undergarments are these big, huge monstrosities of a thing that, handmaids wear. But, yeah, it's just, she feels kind of naked after having to be so covered up for so long. And I believe in the book it says the shoes are a little big, but, she makes them work. And in the book, it's more of like a showgirl outfit that you would have seen like a Vegas girl wear. And not like, it was much worse in the book. It's this purple feathered monstrosity thing.
But it was even weird because then he's like, oh, wait, one more thing. And he's taking her hair down because she had it up in a clip.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he kind of like smells her hair and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And we both did that. Just like.
Yep.
And even my husband, as he watches, he looked at me with that face. And I'm like, yeah, don't smell my hair. Okay, don't ever do that.
It's just such a creepy thing to do.
It is. And then they go downstairs and they're like, okay, do you have the passes? And Nick's like, yes. He's like, okay, here, you'll need this. And it is Serena Joy's cloak.
And it's her winter cloak in the book so that she wouldn't notice that it's missing.
Because Serena's at her mother's.
Yes.
So Nick goes to put it on as Waterford turns around and he kind of like holds her like for that brief second.
Mm-hmm.
And right here is where I was like, uh-oh. And even Jason's like, ooh, he's jealous.
Mm-hmm. Nick just looks sick this entire time. The look on his face, he's kind of lost all the color in it. He's even a little sweaty looking. He just looks like he wants to vomit but can't.
And we don't know what's going on at this point.
No, we have no clue. And then they get past the gateway and they're like, have a good evening, Mrs. Waterford, Mr. Waterford. And then they get to, a gateway where not even wives are allowed.
Which is
to pass.
And this is when she's like, we must be going into Boston.
Yes.
So it's like,
so
she has to trap your wives in areas.
Yeah. Like, that shows just how unfree they are.
Right. Which I was really surprised. But then they go there and they have to sneak her in because she's contraband.
In the back way. And, they'll just assume that you're a working girl. But, it's almost like, we do this all the time where we sneak our handmaids in. It's this fun game, blah, 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 is the impression that I got.
Right. That's what I was getting too. And then, he covers.
It's a total power trip.
Yeah, because he even, he puts earrings on her but covers the tag.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, oh, God. And Nick just, like you said, looked sick because he's standing there as they walk off into Jezebels.
Yeah, because he knows what's going to happen because I believe the Offred before June, he probably did this with too.
That's what I was wondering. Because we do get a flashback, and I don't know if it's at this moment, but it's to the suicide of the previous Offred. And
yes.
You hear Rita screaming, and he runs in, and she's hanging from the rafters, and, he cuts her down. And she's dead. And when they're loading previous Offred into the truck, and Serena looks at him and says, what did you think was going to happen? Now, at this point, I was thinking one of two things. It was either that, okay, they did this, Waterford did this before, took her to Jezebels, played these games with her, or because you're making these women suddenly turn into these broodmares.
Yeah.
So I did not know what was happening. I was kind of torn with that, like which one it could be.
It's my assumption that he probably took the other Offred there, and she found out about it somehow.
Okay.
But we do hear the commander when they first go in, and June is kind of like, what is this place? And it's basically a sex club, speakeasy, because I don't think alcohol is really allowed out in the open. And
you see women in all forms of dress.
Yes, and he says these places are officially forbidden, but we're all human, you know, so senior officials, diplomats, and women who couldn't assimilate or who's there. And we've got quite a collection, which we already discussed. But, Offred is a little freaked out about this. Now, in the book, when she is taken to Jezebels, she recognizes it as the hotel she and Luke used to go to. And it even has the same curtains, the same bedspreads. Yet it's so different in the new society.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that will really mess you up. But they go to the bar and she orders a drink. She orders, what, a Manhattan?
A Manhattan. He's like, ooh, sophisticated.
Right. I've been like, I need some bourbon. What do you got?
I've been like, just give me an IV drip of Jack Daniels at this point. Hey, whatever you got.
And she looks around and she sees Moira.
Yes, in bunny ears. Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my god. Okay, it's like, don't make it obvious. Don't make it obvious. Then she's like, where's the ladies' room?
Yeah, but they do lock eyes, and she knows that Moira is going to expect to meet with her in the ladies' room because she gave her that look. And I remember in the book when she's describing seeing Moira, and she's like, this is something that Moira would never ever pick for herself. And it's kind of like a Playboy bunny costume in the book, more so than what we see on screen.
Right. Because that would make more sense with the ears.
Yeah. So she knows that she's got to meet Moira in the bathroom and that she'll only wait for so long for her and that she's got to get her ass there if she wants to talk to her, because that's kind of must have been a code that they had for each other. Either that day developed in the Red Center, because we do see them going into the bathroom to have talks in the Red Center, or, you know, in their previous lives. So
it was just, again, you have that moment that it's just like going to break your heart, because they meet up in the bathroom and they hug each other, and Moira's like, I'm so sorry I left you at the train. I didn't mean to. She's like, you didn't have a choice, and they're crying. And you have a woman who almost could be an aunt because of what she's wearing. And she's like, you already been in here. You know the rules. And she's like, come meet me down in the dorms.
Yes, which are the ballrooms that they've turned into makeshift dorms.
Oh, my gosh. And she's like, and fix your face.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get the nice little segue where we figure out that Nick has been there before, most definitely. He knows one of the Marthas, and he's trading items for contraband.
Yeah, interesting, because a whole lot of meds and pregnancy tests. And that's why I said, obviously, if they have pregnancy tests, these women are fertile. Some of them.
Yeah, and so we find out that he's been sleeping with this particular Martha in the past.
Yes, because, you know, he's like, oh, no, because he gives her basil, which I love basil. And she's like, oh, let me make you my pesto that got me a James Beard nomination. And he's like, no, not today. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, goes up close and starts grabbing his crotch. And he's like, no, not today. And she's like, all right, whatever. But I was like, okay, so obviously they had a thing. So it wasn't like you and I had thought earlier that maybe he hadn't had sex in a really long time.
Yeah, I mean,
it may
clearly
still be a long time. We don't know the last time.
Yeah, I mean, he's been getting it on the somewhat regular from at least this one Martha, and he's been there enough that, you know, a lot of people there know him. So how often does the commander go here is kind of what I'm thinking. And clearly, you know, he is trading for contraband, and he's able to even get Serena Joy things that she needs.
Right, because they get hair dye.
And
a bunch of alcohol. And just this Martha is just interesting because, you know, we don't know anything about her, but she's young, so I'm kind of surprised that she's not in the Red Center.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's infertile.
It's just kind of, I don't know, interesting how it all played out. Or because she was, you know, a chef. Basically, that's how you're going to get that nomination. Maybe they're like, okay, well, we need to make sure we have people who are cooking really well here because this is for the dignitaries that are coming around.
Yeah, the diplomats and everything. Because I was wondering, I'm like, okay, if she's not fertile and clearly willing to engage in activities like black market, and you know, she seems to be a part of the resistance. This is one of those gray areas where, you know, okay, we're bending the rules, so we need people who are willing to bend the rules, but not so far as to rise up against us, kind of thing.
And just the fact that she's like all for, like, all right, let me get all these drugs for these women. And then she even tells him, because he's like, what's the ketamine for? Oh, some people have that sleeping beauty fantasy. And some of the girls just give it to the guys to knock them out so they can go to their phone. So it's like she doesn't care. And
no.
I don't like the fact that she's just so blasé about it.
Yeah, the sleeping beauty comment really made me shudder.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, you know that happens.
Uh-huh.
But it's like, ew. I can't get past that one.
So meanwhile, the commander's bitching about his boss problems basically over dinner in the room. And, you know, he does take Offred up to the room, and Offred knows kind of what this means to go up to the room. And like I said in the book, she's like, yeah, it's the same bedspread, it's the same curtains, but it's just such a different world now that it's hardly recognizable. It's familiar, but not.
And then you have him say, and you don't have to be quiet here.
Ew. Ew. And he basically forces her to have sex with him, and you just see that tear rolling down her cheek. And you know she's thinking about having been there with Luke. You just, oh, man.
Well, I didn't know that, so I was just thinking she's kind of disgusted because then because she makes a comment and he's like, oh, you really do know me. And he's like kissing her neck and like kissing down her back, and I'm like, yo, I'm just like all like, ew, skeezed out. And then, you know, next thing you know, flash forward slightly, you know, he's asleep in the bed, she gets up to go find Moira. But I was like, I have to scrub down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So she goes down. She finds Moira, and I love it because Moira's like, you look like the Whore of Babylon. But like the second before, you see Moira trying to take off the shoes and looking like she's in huge pain.
Uh-huh.
Which obviously the shoes aren't fitting right. And she's like, this is government issued.
Yeah, exactly. And as she's sneaking down to see Moira, we see some
messed up stuff.
Screwed up shit, and and see some pretty messed up shit, like the nub licking in the elevator where the woman had her hand cut off. That was freaky.
Yeah, and that woman just looks like another one of these weirdos.
Yeah, and like we said, makeshift dorms in the ballroom. She does find Moira, and her shoes aren't fitting. And she's like, well, when she got caught, she was given a choice between the colonies or Jezebels. And you've got a few good years before your pussy wears out, and there's booze and drugs.
I was just like, holy crap. Because,
I'm like, wow, this is the grim reality.
Right. And then plus, because Moira's like explaining, well, she got so far, and that there's Quakers trying to help her escape.
Yeah, she was on the female road, the Underground Railroad, where she was basically being carted from house to house to house to house, and being hidden. And then she finally got to one house where, you know, they either told on her or they were busted or, you know, what have you. And she got captured, and they didn't want to put her back in the Red Center because, you know, she had basically, used violence against, an aunt to escape. And so she wasn't even considered going back in the program. And so she ended up at Jezebels, and was considered one who could not assimilate.
Well, I thought it was interesting though too that they say it's Quakers because they have, I believe, and it could be completely off here, that they're very similar to like Amish, so they have kind of like, I guess, a more simple way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the Quakers are like, okay, this is messed up,
Yeah, you know it's messed up.
It's like, I thought that was interesting that you have these other people who are willing to help, again, you know, at their own peril. And it was just like, seeing all that with her, well, I should say Moira seeing all that, and then Offred's like, we're going to get you out, and she's like, forget about escaping, this is Gilead, nobody gets out. The only way out is feet first in a black van.
Yeah.
And you have...
Basically.
You have June just like, what the hell is this? She's like, Luke got out. And Moira's face is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
He's alive.
Yep.
And you see that brief glimmer of hope, and then all of a sudden she's like, but he's not us. He hasn't had to deal with this.
Yeah.
It's like,
maybe, you know, men have a better chance, but for us, this is it. We just gotta make the best of it.
I was just like, what the hell, Moira?
And Moira used to be such a force to be reckoned with, and now she's completely broken, it seems.
Right. And then, you know, they hug, and she's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you too, bitch, so much. And you see that she is broken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so sad because, like you said, her and June were good friends going back.
Oh, yeah. Best friends at least since college.
And roommates and everything else. And this is... The old Moira is the memory that June was like, all right, I have to get up. I cannot let this happen. Moira wouldn't do this. And then seeing that, you have to think, holy shit.
Yeah. It kind of makes June hopeless in a sense that if they've broken Moira, how soon before I'm broken too? Am I already broken? Have I already accepted my fate? And she starts really to question herself. Now, one thing I will say is that after the first trip to Jezebels in the book, June says, I would like to say that I saw Moira again. I'd like to say that I heard that she escaped. But to be honest, I never saw her again, and I don't know what happened to her.
Oh, no.
So it's a deviation from the book in the series, but I like the deviations that they have made because they're adding content to things that June didn't know when she was narrating the book.
Well, I do enjoy that this has all happened, but we have a little bit left here, which is a little disturbing too. They get back, and then it's like flash forward to the next day, where Serena comes home and Nick's bringing in her bags, and it's
so cold towards her, like it's her fault.
Well, you know what? Even with Serena, and I was like, ugh, because Serena comes in and Waterford's like, "How was your trip?" She's like, "Oh, great. How was it here?" He's like, "Lonely." I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, creepy.
Yes, it's like, because we all know it wasn't for him. But yes, when, you know, Offred smiles at Nick and she's like, I'll see you tonight. He's like, we have to stop this. And then
it's too dangerous.
Quiet rage, because obviously she can't be screaming with them. And
and she's like, she says she doesn't care if she ends up on the wall because at least someone will remember her.
And I'm like, oh my God, Nick, what is wrong with you? And she's like, don't tell me anything about you. And he's like, my name's Nick Blaine from Michigan. And I can't remember exactly what she said, because she's like, under his eye and something else.
Something like that.
And she walks out. Basically, it was like a big middle finger.
Yeah, pretty much.
And she's kind of crying, going up the stairs, and Serena's like, Offred. And she's like,
and she's like, she turns around like, oh.
Right, she has to like try to wipe the tears.
Yeah, like and the way she has to turn around, it's like in her mind, she's thinking, bitch. And then like she turns around, yes, Mrs. Waterford.
It's like, I have a gift for you. It's like, what?
Okay. And it's the creepiest gift you could possibly get. I just don't know how.
It's a little kid's jewelry box. It's a music box. And
so they treat them like pets or children.
Right, and she's like, oh, and here's the key for it. You know, you can't even close your door, but here's a key for the jewelry box.
Yeah. Like, what in the hell is she going to keep in the jewelry box?
So she's listening to the music, because so far we haven't been able to hear any music.
Right.
So it's like, maybe music's forbidden, but she's going to have this. And so she takes the key, and in the closet she sketches etches in, you are not alone.
You're not alone.
And she's listening to the music.
Yeah, and it's basically one of those music boxes like you would have had when you're a child that has a little ballerina in it that spins around. And you see her looking at the music box, and she's like, I will not dance for them. A girl trapped in a box. I will not be the girl in the box. And this, I think seeing Moira broken was a defining moment for her, where she really had to think, okay, am I broken already? Am I going to break, or am I going to choose, no, I will not be the girl in the box? And that's ultimately what she decides.
And I'm really happy about that.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like, oh God, what does this mean?
Yeah. So when I got to this episode, I had been thinking, okay, there has to be some kind of underground something, because they made mentions of the black market and things like that. And so I was thinking to myself, there must be some kind of brothel, sex club, something like that, because men can be pigs. And then we get confirmation that yes, indeed. And it was funny because I had just listened to this part in the audiobook right before I watched this episode, because I tried to like keep pace and listen at the same pace as I was watching. And because the book is a little bit ordered differently than the series, I would get ahead of myself in the TV series and be behind in other ways. But yeah, man, this episode, I just remember thinking, wow, yeah, this is bad.
I have to agree with you, because the whole thing, I was just like, come on, what, why would you do this?
Yeah,
and then at the end with Nick doing it, I was kind of saying the same thing. I was like, why would you do this, Nick? What is wrong with you?
Yeah, and he knows it wasn't her choice. He's got to know that she did not choose, and that if she were to refuse him, what could happen to her.
Right.
But, there he is, being salty, being jealous.
Yeah.
So, and we see that he's somewhat invested in June, because he refuses sex with the aunt at the Jezebels, so.
Yeah, it was just like, one of those things I couldn't get past. And even though he's like trying to make amends by like, my name is Nick. No, screw you. You already pissed me off.
I don't care what your full name is. Screw you. You pissed me off. Right. I didn't have a choice in this. And yeah.
Oh, so this whole episode kind of had my emotions like from unbelief, if that's an emotion, to disgust. And it was just like, it's hard.
It definitely had the creep factor going.
So that was Jezebels. So
yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel. Shoot us an email. Let us know exactly how you feel. fangirlzonepodcast@gmail.com. You can, of course, find everything over at fangirlzone.com. Our contacts for Facebook, for Twitter, our Tumblr, which I believe I have up there now. And tell us everything, what you think. And it's really awesome. And I meant to tell you, weirdly enough, I was looking at an episode or a magazine, one of my EWs, and there was an interview with Margaret Atwood talking about this with Emma Watson, which is strange.
Yes, Emma Watson, very much a feminist.
Yeah, just reading it, it was just really entertaining. You should look it up. I don't know if I can find it quickly enough online. But on the very back, there was an ad for Gilead, which apparently is like some place to test for like STDs and all. But I'm like, okay, that was just weird.
That is weird. Oh, wow. There's a place called Gilead that tests for STDs.
I just had to put that out there. It was weird. And I'm like, wait a second. I thought it was going to be one of those like umbrella corporation, like fake ads. But I'm like, oh, I think this is real.
Wow.
So, anyway. All right. You know how to find me. Jennifer, tell them where they can find you.
I am over at the Hollow 9 Network. I am on a variety of podcasts over there. Our website is hollow9.com, and we spell it kind of weird because we're kind of weird. So it's hollow, the number 9, I-N-E, all one word, .com. You can find me on Twitter. I am Jennifer9, spelled the same way that we spell Hollow 9, all one word. And then I am Jennifer at hollow9.com for email.
All right. So, folks, we do hope you're enjoying this. Please rate and review us. That helps out a lot. And for this episode of Fangirl Zone, I am Sean, Fangirl S.
And I'm Jennifer.
And until next time.